Hi everyone, welcome to The Recovery. This week I'm joined by the amazing Dani St James. Hi Dani.
Hi babe. I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, babe. So what this program is about, it's about recovery. It's about recovering and regaining and getting our lives back. And so what I want to talk to you about is obviously the early days as Dani and right the way through to now to the moment that you found recovery. And I want to talk to you about recovering from your past life and how you transitioned into who you are today, because I think it's really important that people see both all aspects of your life when we talk about it. I mean, what was life like for you as a young kid?
Quite confusing, I guess. I think growing up in the kind of early and mid-90s, there was not really much reference to people like me, to trans people or anything like that. So I look back on who I was up until I was about 16, and I can see a lot of patterns of behavior that were solely like emulation of what other people were doing. So even down to, I've got a lot of tattoos, and I look at my tattoos from sort of around like my mid to late teens, and they were tattoos that I'd seen on gay people that I knew. And I didn't really know how to be a gay man. I just didn't understand it in any capacity. So for me, I was just dressing the same as one of my friends. Whatever he would wear, I would buy the same thing. I would get the same tattoo, you know, because I just didn't have any point of reference for anything that was familiar. So I would emulate what I could see that was popular, I guess.
Yeah. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, and then, so I mean, like, I always say it when people ask me about kind of being trans when I was young, was that I had no reference to it. I didn't know what a trans person was until I was about 16 or 17. And I mean, the only thing I had to refer to as a kid was Lily Savage, you know, like I had this strange affinity to Lily Savage because it was the only thing that I could recognize.
Where did you grow up then? Where did you grow up?
Just outside Cardiff, South Wales. So again, I'm from Barry, which is normally where the Gavin and Stacey impressions kick in. So yeah, I mean, there was just no point of reference around me. You know, it was pre Queer as Folk, it was pre Caitlyn Jenner, it was pre all of these information conversational points. You know,
I mean, who were your idols when you were growing up? Who were they? Like, especially like within pop music and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I grew up, my dad was a massive Bowie fan. So I grew up really heavily influenced by Bowie. And then obviously your mate, Boy George, as well. My mum was a massive Boy George fan. So then that alongside kind of like Prince and really like outwardly.
I mean, they're quite androgynous. All of those, the three people that you mentioned there, probably the most, you know, historically, you know, non-gendered people, really. I mean, aesthetically looking. I mean, Prince and Bowie and George, all of them at some point in their time kind of really looked like they were verging on transitioning at some point, especially Prince. I mean, Prince, most of the time, you know, he was so non-gendered.
He was super androgynous, yeah. And I mean, even I look at when I was kind of around like 14, 15, I was obsessed with Marilyn Manson, but didn't actually like the music. I was just pretending to like the music, but I loved the figure of what he was.
Yeah.
So I think, again, like pulling reference from anything that I could kind of get a bit of identity within, those were the kind of figures that really were the pillars of me growing up.
I mean, with Marilyn Manson and people like that, you know, and you say you didn't like the music, but was you drawn to the fact that it was, you know, no one really knew who Marilyn Manson was or is in that sense? You know, it was like the whole dressing up, the whole, you know, the whole hiding behind another identity. Do you go what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely was. I think it was anyone that I could say that was not complying.
Yeah.
You know, I was just automatically drawn to them. And then when I was 16, I met this trans girl. She was a little bit older than me, and I met her in Cardiff, and she was an escort. She was a dominatrix, and She had loads of, she was a drug addict. She was just like a really beaten down by life person. Became friends with her really quickly. And her background, she was from a Jehovah's Witness family, and they completely disowned her, really abusive to her. And then this one night, about 3 a.m, she called me and said, my auntie's just thrown a knife at me. And I went into my mum's bedroom, middle of the night, and said, somebody's just, her auntie's just thrown a knife at her. And my mum, without missing a beat, looked at me and went, tell her to pack a bag. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Amazing.
And so my mum drove and picked her up, and she moved in with us. And that was, I would say, one of the most pivotal things of my life, because my mum sat us down the following day and said to her, like, you're not going to do drugs while you live here. You're going to get a real job, and you're going to be a normal member of society. This is who you are now. And so then having her kind of recovering where in my family home, alongside now being exposed to somebody who was trans, it just really altered my way of thinking. And I came to terms with it over the course of about a year. And then, I started transitioning.
Yeah, before this point, right, as she moved in, had you ever had any inkling that you wanted to be trans, that you were in the wrong body? Or
I mean, I think that the term trapped in the wrong body is so, I think it's so applicable to some people. And I have friends that it's so applicable to, and you can really tell that. I believe that the reason that I didn't feel that was solely down to the fact that my parents were super diverse people. Like I said, my dad was Bowie, my mum was Boy George. So they were like pre-punks in the 80s.
Can you imagine if your mum was Boy George and your dad was Bowie?
the best. So when I was
sorry.
It's okay. So like when I was a kid, it was never like, you can't do that, that's for girls, or you need to do this, it's for boys. So I think because I wasn't forced to comply with those standards, I never felt trapped within who I was. I was just kind of developing slowly. I mean, if I look at my actual history in terms of my school life, I went to a school that had unisex bathrooms, had unisex uniform.
Wow.
I was put into the girls' PE class.
Harry?
Yeah. It was super progressive, really, really progressive school.
And what year was it?
And then, I mean, I started school 2002, so early 2000s.
Yeah, okay. I keep forgetting. How old are you? I keep forgetting. I keep thinking that you're on the same age group as me for some reason. Because I've known you so long, I always imagine people being older than what they really are. Because I always just think we're all the same age. Do you get what I mean? It's like my addict age.
Well, I mean, you met me when I was, I think, 21. So yeah, I'm 28 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think because of a lack of being put in a box. I mean, like I was in the girls' PE classes for the last 2 years of school because I was learning better in that way, and I just wasn't boxed off. So, and when I was in school with a full face of makeup from when I was 12, but I wasn't told that's a girl's thing. I was just told that was a me thing, and openly had boyfriends from when I was 12. I had my first boyfriend openly when I was 12. So like nothing was really categorized for me. So there was no entrapment within it. Yeah. So I'm so thankful for that, because I think it's what has really contributed to my mindset now, because I don't feel like I'm escaping anything ever. Like I'm just embracing it as it comes, you know.
I mean, I remember before when we did something with Show Studio around the subject with you and Joanne and Londinium, and we talked about the whole trans thing then. And I remember you saying that you never had that problem of having to come out. You never had that problem with a troubled family, them not accepting you. You were always accepted, right? By your mum and dad.
Yeah, I mean, my mum especially. My mum's like the biggest flag waver for diversity. My dad, it was tricky for a bit. It wasn't really when I told him I was gay when I was about 13.
Yeah.
My dad's like a proper old school Cockney rugby playing big geezer. When I told him I was gay, he was more worried because his perception of gay life was really predatorial. Yeah. He just was worried about, and I remember him saying to me like, older men are going to try and get you. Like he was worried. But then my mum was amazing. My dad found difficulty when I transitioned, and it probably took him about 2 years to turn around on that. Probably took him a good 2 years until he was using like the correct pronouns and all of that. But now, oh my God, we're fine. Yeah, we're great.
That's amazing. And
yeah, it's good.
So talk to me about the transitioning period of how what went through your mind from suddenly being this kid that had come out as gay to suddenly becoming who you are today. What was
I always felt quite like I needed to escape where I was from in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I started kind of socially transitioning in the year that led up to me leaving Wales. I left Wales the day after my 18th birthday. And so I was like kind of dressing female, way more female in that year that led up to it. And then I moved to Ibiza for 2 years. So in Ibiza, that was where things really changed, because I started hormones 3 months after I moved there, and nobody knew me prior to it. So it was just like, this is who I am, blah, blah, blah.
Clean page, yeah.
Complete. Ibiza's an amazing place for that as well, because everything is face value, you know. So I did that in Ibiza for 2 years, and I think that was why my dad found it really hard, because it was pre-social media. I mean, Instagram happened the second year I lived in Ibiza. So it wasn't like there was loads of pictures of me going to my dad.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of just telling him bits over the phone, and he wasn't really piecing it all together. And then I come back to the UK 2 years later, I hadn't seen him, and I've got long hair. I've got long hair, and I've got 2 years worth of breast growth. And I'm just, to him, a completely different person, you know? And so that was the only time. But the good thing with that was that I didn't move back to the UK and move to Wales. I came straight to London. So I was still detached.
Do you think that, I mean, you know, your dad's probably grieving the fact that he'd lost a son and suddenly had this new person in his life that he didn't know anything about and didn't understand.
Yeah, so that's actually, it's funny you say that, because that's actually what he said to me. Then I came back to the UK at Christmas, and that was when I saw him. And it was one of the first times I've actually seen him cry. And he said, I feel like I'm looking at the person who killed my son and didn't let me go to the funeral. Like, I just don't get it. Yeah, it was so powerful to me, and I was heartbroken, you know.
Like, you know, also I kind of think, you know, your dad's always lived in Wales. He comes from that, you know, it's that age gap thing again of that understanding. Yeah, you know, you can come to terms with the fact that your son wears makeup and goes out and is gay, but then as you say, you went away and you came out of this cocoon and come back as a butterfly. You know, the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly is immense. If you didn't know they came from each other, you would think they were two different entities altogether. Do you know what I'm saying?
Completely.
So his understanding of that, I kind of see it. Do you know
because as well, and because having that kind of musical influence when he was younger of Prince, Bowie, Boy George, and all of those sort of people, when I was just a boy in makeup, my dad was very much like, my kid's just like Bowie, you know, like my kid's just like Boy George.
The identification was there, of course.
Completely. And then obviously when I came out as trans properly, and when I'd been away for all that time, again, there was no media representation of trans people. The only people, you know, and this sounds bad, but like you'd occasionally see like that old trans type in Wales, where it was like used to be like one of the miners up the valleys, and is now, and that was all you knew. And to them, it's like, oh my God, you've chosen the hardest path.
The word tranny was so frequently used, because, you know, you'd see those poor souls. You know, when I say poor souls, I say poor souls because the area that they're in and what they go through, that kind of, you know, the determination of them, who they want to be, is incredible. But, you know, society doesn't allow that. So society would let people use the word tranny, and look at that tranny over there. And it becomes so acceptable to say that word, and so acceptable to treat people in that manner, because people who don't understand something, they fear it. When you don't understand something, you fear it. And then what fear leads to hate. So what we do is, you know, with all like homophobia and transphobia, it all comes from a place of non-understanding. We don't understand. So what we do is punch them or knock them down, because that's not admitting that we don't understand it. That's admitting we don't want it in our lives. So
absolutely,
that small town mentality. I mean, those guys that preceded you, and those trans, like the ex-minors that have left it all their lives to suddenly come out and be who they want to be because society's got a little bit easier. Fucking amazing, right? Amazing.
Yeah. Oh my God, completely. But I mean, I can now, in the knowledge that I have now, understand why, looking at somebody transitioning 15 years ago, such myself, I mean, me, it's like 11, 12 years ago, would look like I was choosing the hardest path in life. Like, like I say choosing, but like identifying with what would have been the hardest way of life. Like, no one's going to understand you. They're all going to think you're some weird sex pest. Like, what is this? So it was, I think as a parent, it must have been like, oh my goodness, what are you doing?
As a gay man, growing up as a gay man, you get that whole, oh my God, he's a gay man, he must be a kiddie fiddler. Anytime there's paedophilia on the news, it's always blamed on the gays. There couldn't be further parts of the spectrum. And, we get labelled with things because people don't understand it. And you get what I mean? And because when I was growing up, I mean, I used to, as we know, there was a period in my life when I was about 16, 17, when I used to do this drag act called Down and Targan. There was a real serious point in my life for about a year where I would go out of the house nearly every night in drag. And I was called drag back then, right? We called it was drag. I was out and out and out. There was a real part of me that really loved it and really loved the attention. I thought I could do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it kind of just, as the circles I mixed in changed, so did that kind of like thought process. And, we used to go to this pub called in Elephant and Castle, in Vauxhall, called the Elephant and Castle. And it was on a Tuesday night, they had amateur drag night. So it was fucking incredible. We used to have the best time there because it was like one of these places where people would come in, they would get changed in the toilets and come out. They had this one act called Rosemary, and every week she did, I mean, it was a lorry driver. Every week he came out and he did the same song, Bobby's Girl. I wanna be Bobby's Girl. And he was about 70. It was incredible. We would cry. I used to go with Taste Him. All of us used to go. And he became this massive cult figure at the time. Everybody would talk about Rosemary. And it was kind of just like, because of who she was and what she was doing and the fact that she was so amazing. But at the same time, she ridiculed herself because that was her way of making people accept her. And so therefore, we laughed with her, not at her. And that was the difference. And then, as time went on, that get kind of like that kind of preconception of like who I wanted to be changed. And then of course there was this place called the Phil Beach Gardens Hotel, which was in Earls Court. I don't know if you ever heard of it. And it was Phil Beach you would love. And they had a bar in the basement called the Oscar Wilde Bar. With Oscars at the Phil Beach. And we used to go there and it was so much fun because you'd have this really butch guy in like loads of makeup and we'd come and sit next to you. You're going to buy me a cocktail. It was genius because it was just like the first time they actually could be who they wanted to be. And it was so amazing. The wind just blew my door shut. But it was so amazing. And, I've always been drawn to that energy because you know what, there's nothing in life that's where people that can't be who they want to be. It's I mean, I think that's definitely like it's a blessing and a shame at the same time that kind of era is dying out because there was something in it. When I first came to London, it was still like, oh God, can you imagine naming a club like Tranny Shack now? Let's not go there, right?
No, let's not go
Tranny
there.
I mean, but that was acceptable back then,
it was the same sort of thing. Yeah,
it's not like it was. We've reclaimed it. Like the word queer, we've reclaimed that as that's socially acceptable because we reclaimed that word. It's like the N word. Certain groups can use that word quite freely within their group. We can use the word queer quite freely in our group. I'm quite happy using the word faggot as well, because we reclaimed it. But the word tranny was never reclaimed. It's it suddenly became like the worst word to use.
I mean, the way that I find it socially acceptable is amongst trans women and things like that. Like, I think it's just part of that kind of repertoire that trans women share. Occasionally, a gay friend. Depends in which way. But on the whole, I can kind of see why people are so against it. But then I just think, stop taking everything so fucking seriously.
I know, seriously.
You know, like, it's not that deep. And unless it's shouted at me out the van in the street, it's not serious.
I mean, I got called puff the other day. This guy around the corner went, "Oh, shut up, you little puff," to me. And I was like, "Actually, I'm a big puff and I'll punch 10 buckets of shit out of you." But, you know, and I was kind of, he kept calling me a little puff. And I was like, "Listen, there's nothing little about me. I'm a massive puff. Come and find me. Don't get in my face and like think you're insulting me by using the P word. I mean, come on, please." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So life today, you know, so over that period, you came to London, you started going clubbing, you started doing all that stuff. You know, I met you when you were doing Shadow Lounge and stuff like that. And I kind of, when we get involved within the world of nightclubs and the world of working in bars and stuff, that's where we get sucked in. That's when suddenly it becomes our life, and drinking and taking drugs suddenly becomes, we're the party. We start to think that we're the party. We start putting on parties and suddenly we are the party.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
how dark it got for
you. Do you know, it's funny because it didn't actually get dark until I left, which is strange. But so when I first moved to London, I started off as a manager at Proud Camden. It's not there anymore. That huge club in Camden.
Yeah, so the old Stables.
Yeah, Stables Market. And then so I went on from there, and then that was when I became general manager of Shadow Lounge.
Yeah.
So I was the key holder. I was the one at the top. I was the responsible one.
Yeah.
And I actually was really good during that time. Like, I was really prepared.
You just hit the nail on the head. The word you just used was, I was responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it didn't get dark till after you left because you weren't responsible after.
I wasn't responsible anymore.
Really
yeah.
Valid point. Go on.
So I had a big level of responsibility. I was young and dumb before Shadow Lounge. When I was at Camden, that was when we first met, when I was in Camden, because I used to be at Camden, and then on a Thursday night after work, about 2 a.m, I'd get a cab from Camden to Vauxhall, and I'd be in area for the next 10 hours. And then I'd go have some sweaty, horrible shower somewhere, and then go back to work. And then I'd go back to Vauxhall on the Friday night. And that's how I would spend my weekend, just bouncing around London. And then took Shadow on, all the responsibilities, stopped all of that, was great. And then I went on, once I left Shadow Lounge, which was about 18 months, 2 years later, I moved on to a club in Chelsea for a brief stint. And then my career, I left Nightlife after about a year in that as well. And then so for me, I would say it got bad about 2 years, about 2.5 years ago. And it was when a switch went. I'd gone through some stuff, went through some trauma, and it was like a switch went in my head. And every time I drank, it no longer took me to being the life and soul of the party at all. And I went from that to being one of two things. I was either the hazard that people would avoid because I was too crazy and I was horrible.
And go near her, that one,
Tony, I was just so arrogant, like just drenched in arrogance, you know, like because I'd had 5 years of running cool clubs, and then I've kind of got I suppose notoriety in a way within club scene. And then I was being, about 2 years ago, it was when I started getting booked every week, at least twice a week, to go and host different parties around the city. And I'd be on posters for like, I'll be here, I'll get you guest lists, I'll get you in. And then I'd show up and it would be like just getting a spinning wheel and dropping me into the middle of the party. And I would just lose my mind, like go crazy in these parties. And for other people, that's prime viewing, because I was either I was either really fun, or I would be reading someone to the ground and tearing them apart. And in gay culture,
you become the entertainment. You become the circus. You become
absolutely.
You become one of the clowns. You become like everything that you never ever wanted to be. But because you have a drink or a drug in your body, and you're within that, and suddenly you get an audience.
Yeah.
You're going to flow.
And
I'm the worst. As soon as I still do that in recovery. If I get
yeah,
a big enough audience, I will fly and I will go into flow, and I'm like, more and more laughs I get, the more attention I get, the more high I get off of it. And I'm like,
completely.
it's terrible,
And as well, around that time, kind of back kind of 3 years moving forward was when I started getting a bigger online following.
Yeah.
And because Instagram stories became really big about 2 years ago, whilst I was creating this havoc in Nightlife, I was phone in hand filming everything, and people are cheering it on and cheering it on and cheering it on. I'm getting all of these people being like, this is so funny, this is so great. And then there's just this ego that was just inflating.
There were
And
some
so, yeah,
brilliant stories, Dani. There were some brilliant Instagram stories. I mean,
yeah,
there's been some excellent Instagram stories. And, to watch, there's been times when I've been like, ooh, Dani, slow down.
yeah,
I've said to you in the past at times, I was like, and then there's been some other times when I've seen you and I've you know, I thrive on that stuff sometimes, watching other people high and watching other people drunk. Not that I
yeah,
miss it, I thrive on it because it's still me. Do you get what I mean? It's
yeah.
still me.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah. And so I, I, I just spiraled. I went really, really bad. And then off the back of that time period, I got into the most toxic, awful relationship I've ever been in. You met him, actually. Do you remember the guy that I brought to the Groucho that
I do
time?
remember him, yeah.
He was evil, right? Just
He
pure.
was, yeah. I mean, I went to, you were in the dressing room, and I left and went with him to the shop up the road. And I walked up
Yes.
the road, and I came back, and before I walked to the shop with him, I thought, oh, he's really nice. By the time I got back from the shop, I thought, what a complete creep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Psycho creep,
So manipulative.
Yeah,
And
controlling, right?
he fully convinced me that I was just an awful, awful person. I was just in the worst place with him. And then I when I started spiraling, like I say, it had been off the back of some really just hard stuff that happened in my life, and there was a person there that really kind of supported me through that whole time period. So then I got out of everything kind of the beginning of last year in terms of the relationship and all of that. And then mid last year, the person who'd helped me around the time of the trauma died. And it just sent me off again. It was like a regurgitation of the beginning of a spiral through trauma. Just trauma, it was like bam. And I was, again, just that wheel dropped. And I was out for 4 days stretches, and I was doing all of that again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then it was kind of like I knew that
we had these periods in our life where we kind of seem to think that we got it together, and we get it together to a certain extent. We're still socially we're still socially doing what we do, but not to the extent that we do. And then so all it takes is someone to literally flick that switch. Any excuse, trauma, the loss of someone, loved one. He said, she said, he did, he done. All of that stuff comes into play, and we're off and running. And it doesn't it doesn't start off like, oh, a couple of drinks. We go straight back to the place that we left off. Always. Mm-hmm. It's never a gradual spiral. Oh, okay, I'm just going to go out tonight and then build up. It's straight, boom, straight back in.
Yeah, for sure. And 100%. And the toxic behaviors that have regurgitated themselves over that time period really kicked in again, kind of mid last year. And this, I also noticed over the last year or so that I was still drinking and partying, the memory loss bouts that I was getting, just 2 glasses of wine and I forget everything. Like I wouldn't know how I got home. Anything. I wouldn't remember conversations, people, places, cabs, tubes, so nothing. Completely, yeah. And that was actually
the trans girl in London, doing that,
Exactly, yeah. And that was when things really started coming to our heads, and then my boyfriend, he and I have now been together kind of about 7 months, and meeting him, because he's 15 years sober.
Yeah.
I've known him for a really long time, but the kind of the romantic stuff that came into it, I was supposed to have some surgery this year before the lockdown came in. And in my mind for last year, even amongst all of the memory loss and the vile behavior and all of that, I was saying, right, 2020, I'm not going to drink for the first 7 months of the year because I'm going to go sober for surgery and then I'm just going to go back to drinking again. And through meeting my boyfriend again, like kind of rekindling things with my boyfriend and getting together. And he said to me, like, why is it that you feel the need to go back? If you do it for 7 months, why do you need to go back?
Yeah, especially moving forward to a new life, to a new chapter. You're going to the place that you should be and becoming who you should be. Why would you want to go back to that carnage?
And I still had this plan of like, but I'm fine. Meanwhile, I'm losing my friends. I'm alienating my family. I am destroying my body and just hating myself. It was just awful. And then it was just a real spiral that was getting out of control. And that was when I called you. So I'm 5 months sober now.
Congratulations. Amazing.
Thank you. And I called you, I think, December.
Yeah.
And that was when I said to you, like, I'm scared because I just don't know anything when I have a drink. I don't know who I am. And I have lost people over this. It's just, it's breaking me down, you know, like one of my closest friends who still won't speak to me. And just loads of actions that I made that were done through the darkness of drink and partying and all of that, you know.
And so you say you're 5 months clean, which it's amazing. I just think, you know, I love it when I see people come in and I see them get that glint back in their eye. That's the gift for me, to see someone had that glint in their eye of love and like for life again. And I've seen that in you. I've seen it in you with the images and pictures that you post of you and your boyfriend. It's a whole different ball game. There's like, totally, you know, there's a real, you can see the passion and you can see the zest for life in it. You know, there's a light on behind the light, behind the eyes, you know. And I just think, how's your life changed since you, apart from obviously having the boyfriend, but how's your life changed in those last 5 months? How do you feel that you think differently, you act differently? What's changed in that?
Well, first of all, I feel like I gained an extra day a week. Like, that was the first thing I noticed, was like, oh my God, I've just got so much time on my hands. And that was boring initially. It was really boring to me. I was just like,
our heads tell us, oh God, this is boring. If this is all life is, I can't drink, I can't go out and party, life's boring. It's like, that's our addict head talking to us. That's us, the grieving process of us.
Absolutely.
You know, oh God, no one's going to like you anymore, Dani, because you don't drink. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like the opposite. That's what our head tells us.
My relationship dynamics have changed with people also, in terms of, obviously the common ground that I now share with some people is no longer that I would get you into that club and I would make sure you had those drink tickets and all of those things that would come with it. So my relationships have changed. I kind of expected that, to be honest. So I've just got way more time.
But isn't that amazing that you don't have those want people in your life? They're not your friends. They never were your friends. Those people that want to know you for what you can get them and what you can give them. Fuck off. Seriously.
Well, it was actually something that you said to me when I first called you and said, like, I'm ready. I need to do this. And you said, you know, you just need to ask yourself, who am I doing this for? Who are you entertaining? Yeah. And you said to me, like, you've got no moral obligation to make people's night fun. Like, they're fully capable. That's not you. That's them. Who are you doing this for? Because realistically, I stopped having fun in that way 2 years ago. Easy, if not more. Yeah. And so it just took that kind of kick up the arse to go, my priorities need to change, which they now have, and recognizing that my plans and my priorities and what now makes me happy are so different. You know, like, I started studying again, I'm working towards my degree, I'm looking to change my life, and all of these things that came through the clarity of a judgment, the clarity and judgment that I gained from not being influenced by going out and getting twatted.
It's incredible. It really is. It's incredible, and it's really joyful to hear, you know, because the dynamics change so drastically, and when we embrace it and we suddenly get this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm just loving life right now, and suddenly we come into lockdown, and which would be a really good time. Our addict head would kick in and say, oh, to get through this, you need to be high or you need to be drunk,
Yeah.
you know. That to go through something that we're going through right now and being stuck with ourselves, being stuck with the alcoholic or the drug addict version of ourselves is a nightmare. But to be stuck with ourselves, we're not stuck. We have choices. We have options today. Being stuck is when we have no options and we're drinking every day because that's what we do. Today we have options.
Yeah.
Today, you know, we can wake up and be in a really bad mood, but you know what? We have the power to change that today. Because misery is an option, and when we get clean, that's what we always say to people. You know, why are you so miserable? Miserable is an option, you know, and it's an option that I don't choose to have that often. I will wake up in a bad mood, or something will happen. I don't allow that anymore to dictate my month. Because before it would stick with me. So-and-so said this, I'd think about a million ways to get that person back. It would consume me. And before I know it, I was completely drowning in hatred for myself and for everyone else. Today, it's about self-love. It's about self-care. And I can see it in you, Dani, that the difference in you, it's the fact that, you know, you're becoming who you should be. And
absolutely.
You know, boring people, the only people that are bored are boring people. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I think the only time I really struggled with it, I think obviously everything is perception. I've actually think that the lockdown has been a massive boost to me during this time because the social pressures haven't been there during the last like 2 months of it, which have been great because before we went into lockdown, I was on like month 3 of being sober, and I went to a friend's birthday, and I'd made no intention of making any fuss of being like, oh, I'm not drinking, because I don't want to be that kind of like
the worst,
the worst, kind of like a preachy vegan, like, oh, I don't, you know, I don't do that. And I never want to be that person. And so I'd gone there, and I was just like, they pre-ordered loads of drink, and I was like, oh, can I just get a Diet Coke? And then it became straight away, why are you not drinking? And then I ended up having to explain myself 20 times over, like, why are you not drinking? Oh, just have a little one, you know? And it was just constant. And so I'm glad that this time period has allowed me the clarity to just reconfirm with myself that it's the right decision for me, you know?
I mean, I've got sponsees that had to go through the same stuff. For me, I never went through that because I was so open about my rehab and where I'd been. And when I came out of rehab, it was published everywhere. I did a rehab diary just so that I didn't have those questions asked and just so I couldn't go back. Once it was out there, it's kind of like I wasn't going to set myself up to like, oh God, he's failed. Because that was it. From now on, I'm going to be a winner, you know? And so I didn't have that, but I do have a lot of people that I help and work with, and that come to me and they say, oh, I don't want to go out because they're going to ask me why I'm not drinking. Tell them you got clap. Tell them you're on antibiotics. You know, make it socially acceptable. I've got gonorrhea. So okay, then that's fine. Do you go on stage? Not like, oh, I'm not drinking anymore, because suddenly in their eyes that becomes socially unacceptable. But it's all right. It's all right. I've gonorrhea or syphilis. But you know, it's easier to say that for the time being. You know, it's like, you know, it's no one else's business, and when they make it their business, you know, forever I hear people go, oh, it must be so boring not drinking. It's like, it's so boring drinking. My drinking is like not drinking. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when the thing I think that a lot of socially people found hard with me was that I'm always high functioning. Like I always manage. I'm always going to show up, and I'm not going to show up looking like shit ever. I never have.
That's one thing I'd say to you. You never, even when you were a complete car crash, you never ever look shit.
I always make sure I present. So when I tell people like I've stopped and this is why, people go like, but you were fine, you know. And when I tell, because I think as well, like when you tell somebody like I had a really bad drinking problem, they automatically correlate that with me waking up in the morning and putting Baileys over cornflakes, you know, because that's not
on a park bench.
Yeah, and that wasn't the drinking problem that I had. What I had was that when I drank, I became the worst version of myself. So I had to stop, you know? And so now I'm just learning constantly who I am without it, you know? And so by identifying, like, no, I had a problem with drink, I had a problem with partying, I had a problem with this, I had a problem with that. People can't correlate, can't add it up with me, because I would always show up turned out, ready to be there, you know. So yeah, that's it, it's hard to gain, because I don't think people give it as much validation when you just say like, oh no, I'm just really, really horrible when I drink.
Yeah.
And people go like, what? Like they just don't get it.
Well,
So yeah, I try not to explain
the
it
only
too much.
time that they get it is when they're in your shoes, in
Completely.
that position, and they've got to that point where they are that person that you don't want to be, and that's kind of when they kind of clicks and they think, oh my god, and you know, that's when they want to change. I just want to say, Dani, you know, I'm so happy that you are who you are today, and you're happy within yourself, and you know that you're not only, you know, you're transitioning from so many other things that people don't need to know about. You know, you're at the movement from change of being that car crash mess is gone, and now you're this beautiful, stunning woman, and
Thank you.
you know, you have your life ahead of you, and you can be whoever you want to be, Dani. You really can.
Yeah.
You just don't.
And I mean, it's in no small part from you. I mean, when I knew that it was time to change, it was like I'd been spent so many years identifying when, and so many other people needed to change, and the whole time it was just sat there looking at me, that it was me that needed to change. And so when I finally was able to break it down, you were the first person I called, and it was through the words that you shared with me from your experience that allowed me to do it. And I think if I hadn't have come straight to you, I don't think that I would have lasted. I really don't. I don't think I would have had that.
I'm really, really chuffed, and you know, and that you said that. But you know what, Dani? People are going to come to you now, and they're going to reach out to you. They people that are watching this and are in the same position as you. Get the young girls transitioning, you know, young girls, full stop, that want to change. They're going to see this, and they're going to see you, because we lead by example. This is what we do. This is what this is all about. I don't go around preaching, although I am on this program. I don't really go around preaching about, okay, you can't drink, because I don't have a problem with people drinking. I don't have a problem with people taking drugs. You know, people using and using drink and drugs, I don't have a problem with. People that are abusing drink and drugs, that's when flipping. And you know, people are going to come up to you, because we lead by example. People see our lives have got so good. People say to me all the time, oh my god, your career's gone through the roof, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's for one reason only, because I'm in recovery. And you know, and the important things in life really do matter to me today, not the superficial rubbish that we get so lost in. And I'm just so
and I
happy.
think as well, there's a huge pressure for young LGBT people to get straight into that environment. I did it, you did it, like, so
100%.
everyone we know basically.
It's about, you know, we conform, and we think that, you know, it goes back to when years ago we used to say, you know, oh, they're going to put this, start putting it, you know, you meet someone, they go, I've just come out, and you go, 2 weeks from now they're going to be putting an S on the end of everything. Like, I'm going, heavens is, you know, trade. We used to, you know, that was the way it was. It was conforming to the way you thought gay people spoke. You think that gay people do this. Today, it's a really sad world, you know, especially within the world of Grindr and stuff like this. You know, young kids think that they have to take drugs to be funny. They think they have to take drugs to go to parties. They think they have to take certain drugs to fit into certain circles. And, you know, and it's harder now than ever, I think, on that.
Oh my God, massively.
And you know,
and I mean, even with the whole like Grindr thing and the apps and all of that sort of stuff as well, like, it's only now, all these years on, that I can identify how much I replaced love with physicalness and with men, and just draping myself off of some fucking idiot muscle bunny in the middle of a club. And it's only now through the clarity of sobriety and truly being in a happy, stable relationship that I'm like, whoa, I was replacing all of this happiness with booze and boys and bars and all of the other B's that come along with it. it was all replacement of what is real. And there's so much, I've gained so much in being able to see that now and identify what real love is like and what real happiness is like and what real joy is without the smoke screen of all of those things.
And then that's at 5 months. Can you imagine what you're going to feel at 5 years? I wish you
I'm looking forward
the
to
longest, happiest recovery. I really do. And you deserve it. You deserve every moment of it, of the enjoyment that you're going to get from life. You know, it's when we live life on life's terms, it's hard sometimes because we don't have those crutches. But we don't have, I fancy a drink, I need this, I need that. So what it's about learning. It's about learning and keep learning who we are. And we're forever learning. And as long as we're learning, we're winning. I love you.
Absolutely. I love you very much.
So much, Dani.
Thank you, Angel.
Hi guys, if you want to know more about recovery, fashion, music, me, the world of Fat Tony, subscribe down below.